our minds with a brain dump. And a brain dump is really just writing everything down on paper. It's not complicated. It's not complex. It's not hard, as in hard to do, but it is surprisingly hard to do. To admit what's in our head, to take the time, of course, that's a big one, to get it all down onto paper. And maybe even to trust the process, that it's not wasting your time and that it's okay to admit and to see all of that that's going on inside of your head. So this workshop here is for you if there we go. So the workshop is for you if your mind whirls and you can't even nail down anything specific that's bothering you. There's just a whole lot going on in your head. And if someone asks you, what are you thinking about or what's weighing on your mind? You're like, just everything. I just can't even stop my whirling, congested thoughts long enough to even figure out what I'm thinking. It just feels like swirling, whirling, crazy time in my head, and I couldn't tell you why or what it is. Right? If you feel constantly distracted or just vaguely anxious, but again, you haven't really nailed down what it is. It's just something in your head that you don't even know what it is, but it's bothering you. It's preventing you from focusing, from doing what matters, from paying attention, and even from appreciating what's going on around you. If you're worried that you're forgetting something important, like you have that just back of the mind nagging and feeling like there's something else. What is it? I don't even know what it is, but I just know that I'm missing something. I think we all know that feeling, right? If you can't seem to think straight anymore, again, this kind of comes back again to focus. If you can't even focus anymore, it's just one thought pops in your head followed by another completely unrelated thought, and you can't choose to focus on the one thing because you're afraid that this other thought that's just popped in, which is important, you're going to lose it, right? That's another way of being distracted, but it prevents us from even being able to think in a straight line, to clearly reason anything out, because always there's just one thing after another in our heads. Yes, loose strings in your head. That's a great way to express it. So the brain dump is for you if you do ever or have ever felt these. And I think that's why brain dumping is for everyone, because we can all relate at some point to probably all of these at some point in our life. And right now, you can share in the chat, is it number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4? Which one is the biggest pain point right now? Which one's really feels the most pressing, the most problematic, the most applicable to you right now? A brain dump helps with all of these situations. One practice helps with all these situations. And we'll talk more at the end about how to use a brain dump to prevent these from happening. But sometimes we just all experience these and feel them. So when we do, that's when we know we need a brain dump. So I got the idea of a brain dump. I did my very first brain dump over a decade ago, back when I first read David Allen's book, Getting Things Done. Love that book. And a brain dump is the way he starts you off. If you want to get organized, to be more productive, David Allen says you start with a brain dump. And so I didn't make it up. I'm just echoing. I'm just saying amen. He's right on this one. Let's do it. So he says your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. And that's one of the reasons why those thoughts keep whirling or they pop up, and it causes us anxiety about the thoughts that pop in our head because we are afraid we'll forget again. It's probably because we will. That's totally reasonable thing to think, that you'll forget it again. And so we think at the whim of whatever thought happens to pop into our head, because we don't have a way to keep that information handy. Our brains don't work in a linear fashion. They're great for making connections. They're great for generating ideas. They're great for creativity. They're great for reasoning and analysis. But when we are trying to hold and keep information in our brains, the creativity and the logical analysis and all that just goes out the window. There's not enough, there's not enough processor speed. If we were going to use a computer analogy, not enough bandwidth. If we're going to use an internet analogy. But really, it's not just that there's not enough bandwidth, or these different kind of metaphors that we use. But really, it's not what our brains were meant to do. And so they're working on overdrive because we're trying to use our minds, use our brains in a way that they weren't intended to. So I won't go off on brains and connections and neuro anything. That would take a little bit more research and careful words than I have prepared at the moment. But we all know that feeling where, when you're brainstorming and creative, that those connections come. And that's the beauty and the amazing thing about our minds and the way that God made them. And when we're trying to hold on to details and keep track of a lot of things, it shuts off our ability to just make those random, that they're not really random, right? But to make those those intuitive leaps and those the connections of creativity, because we're kind of closing in on those details, really trying to keep track of a lot of things. And so our brains don't have the freedom to do what they're really best at. And so we do a brain dump so that the paper and the pen, which, those, speaking of the history of the world, just the paper and pen is such a gigantic blessing and benefit that we should take advantage of. And paper and ink can hold a lot of information. And so we should use the paper and the ink for holding information, or the bytes and the computers for holding information. That's okay too. If you want to brain dump because you can type faster than you can write, that's totally okay. But we're using something external from our minds to hold the details, to keep track of the things. And then that will in turn free our minds to problem solve, to think creatively, come up with creative solutions, just to think rationally and logically, and to focus, pay attention to what's in front of us and learn. So that's why it's so important. And so what you need, and you should have this for the workshop too. So this isn't just, so in the future, when you're going to do a brain dump, go get these things. No, pause right now. Don't push pause. I'll pause. I'll take a sip of my sparkling water. You make sure that you have a pen or a pencil, a cheap notebook. That's all you need. That's all the supplies that it takes to do a brain dump. Don't use a fancy notebook, your favorite notebook, because these are disposable thoughts that we're brain dumping everything. It's not going to be a pretty product. It's not going to be a finished product. We're just, I don't want to, I saw that some people had the flu and were sick. So I don't want to use illness metaphors here for what we're going to do with what's in our brain onto the paper, but you get it. It's going to be a mess. And it's okay. That's all part of what a brain dump is going to be. And it's nice when the paper is held together, because you're going to be using more than one piece of paper. And it's going to be way more than the back of an envelope is going to hold. So I always keep a stack of the cheap spiral notebooks, the kind that go on sale for 10 cents back to school. And those are perfect for brain dumping. And then when you come with that notebook and that pen or pencil to write things down, you need to also come with a willingness to experiment. This comes back to our attitude as we process. Because if you are brain dumping while telling yourself, this is a dumb waste of my time, your brain dump's not going to be very good, very thorough, actually complete. Mostly what you're thinking is, this is a dumb waste of my time. So that's like all that you have to write down. You're not, letting go of the worry and just paying attention to what's actually going on in your head, to stop for a minute and just think out onto the paper or onto the computer screen. And that will stop the flow of ideas, the flow of information. It will gunk up your brain dump. So you have to be careful of your attitude going into it, and you have to give it an honest shot with willingness to just try it out and see what comes of it. It will help. That idea of experimenting, of trying something out, will serve you in all of your organization efforts, and especially with the brain dump, where you're not working on getting it to a final product. You're not really caring about being finished or accomplished or done. You're just putting stuff onto paper, and that is it. And so that takes patience as well. It's not that you need to spend hours at a time brain dumping, but once you start, you will be amazed at how much comes. So some time is nice, a chunk of time, but we don't always have that. Am I right? We don't always have that. And so just like, we just had a membership workshop, kind of like this, last week on the decluttering habit. And that was more decluttering stuff, not your mind. And we talked about how decluttering needs to come off of the project list as if it's this huge thing that you're going to finish someday, and just become something that you do for 10, 15 minutes a few times a week. And it's the same with the brain dump here, because the brain dump is just another form of decluttering, and doing it for just a short amount of time, but regularly. Notice I didn't even say every single day, but a few times a week. You just come at it and you're like, okay, I have 10 minutes in the car while I'm waiting for the kids to come out from their thing. I have 10 minutes here at the stove while waiting for this water to boil. Whatever it is, those are the moments that we can grab. And because they're just in the middle, like, you don't need this particular location. You don't need any particular thoughts in your head. You just start paying it like, what's there? Let's just get it out. And so it can be anywhere. You just need a pen and paper close at hand, or your computer or your phone, whatever. So just short bits of time, and expect it to take a week or two to really start getting the hang of it and seeing what all's coming out of your mind. So I promised in the title of the workshop that we would talk about the how and why and when of the brain dump. So we have the supplies, we have the willingness, and now we're going to talk about how. How do we do this? Writing things down just sounds too simple, too easy. And it really is that simple. And like I just said a few minutes ago, this is decluttering your mind. Brain dumping is the same as any other decluttering project, really. So we can take that experience and apply it to our brain dump, and then we can get experience through brain dumping of what it's like to decluttering and what it's like to declutter, and apply that to our stuff as well. And so we just get better and better at this skill of continual decluttering. And so when we declutter our minds, it's really the same process as if we were decluttering a closet. And if it's a gigantic, like a coat closet or a linen closet where things have been stashed for a long time, that's what your brain is like, then it's going to take more than 10 or 15 minutes. And instead of trying to come at it and say, I'm going to completely clean out and organize this gigantic mess of a closet or this gigantic mess in my head, we can say, well, today in my 10 or 15 minute chunk, because, the whole day to clear out the closet's never actually going to happen. We keep saying, well, when I have that, and I'll do it. And that never happens. So instead of waiting for it to happen, we say, okay, I have 10 or 15 minutes here. I'm just going to do this one, even just half a shelf. Just one area. And we do the same with our brain dumps. We can just pick like homeschooling, chores, this project, these people, this idea. We just pick one, and that's where we start, and we see how far we get. But we're narrowing down that focus, and that helps us actually get somewhere. And once you've chosen that area, then you empty it all out. So if it was a closet or a single shelf in a closet, you just scoop everything off the shelf. And the point isn't that it's coming off in any kind of sorted, orderly fashion. You're not taking care of each thing as it comes off, because that would take forever. It's not the most efficient way to clean out your closet. It's not an efficient way to clear out your head either. So you don't just put one thing onto paper and then take care of it. You just empty, get that shelf clear. And that's the main bulk of the brain dumping, is just emptying. Put it onto paper, write it all down, get it all out. All of the stuff off of that closet shelf just goes onto the floor, the table, or the bed, or whatever handy surface is nearby. Not because it belongs there, just like the stuff doesn't belong in the brain dump notebook necessarily. We'll get to that. But because that's the way to make sure that you get it done, and the way to see the biggest progress the soonest. Because you see that clear shelf, you see possibility now. Like, now I can do something with that space. And yeah, there's a big mess right here, but there's also the trash can nearby, so we can deal with this. And it's the same with our brain dump. When it's all out onto paper, suddenly our minds are free to think. And you'll experience this yourself if you try it. Promise. Yes, and all the other things might start falling out too. You just let it all fall. It's okay. It is very precariously contained chaos. It's just mess. And that's okay. You're not doing it wrong. You're not broken. You're not, a horrible person if that's what happens. This is just the way that our lives easily end up being, where because we're just keeping track of everything inside so much, it feels a little bit like ungluing when we start getting it all out and unraveling. But we want the unraveling. We want it all out. So just let it. It's going to be messy. It's okay. Just dump it. Then, and that's going to be for a brain dump, for decluttering a closet, that's like the quickest step. You're like, whoosh, now I have to deal with all this stuff. For brain dumping, it's a little bit of the opposite. The emptying is what takes all the time. And then there's some sorting and some putting back. And that's not, because your brain isn't where things go. that's not as big of a deal as it is in decluttering a closet. So it's really the emptying that's the bulk, the majority of the project. But it's still similar to that closet where after it's all out, then you don't just put back everything that came out. You throw away the garbage. You give away stuff. You return stuff that's not yours. Put laundry in the hamper where it's going to get washed instead of just shoved in the corner. You start taking care of the things, but the best first step is to throw out everything you can throw out, or put things in the donate pile, or return things to their owner, where you're just getting stuff out. And it's the same with the brain dump. And you put back only what belongs, and you put things where they belong. So if it came off of the coat closet shelf, but it's a book, you put it on the bookshelf. You just put things back in the place where they actually belong. And yes, that assumes that there is a place for them to belong, but we'll get to that later. That's the process. And for brain dumping, like, it works the same way, but it's really the emptying that's huge. Yeah, don't categorize, don't try to make it organized and neat and tidy on the paper. The brain dump is a mess, and it's supposed to be. Don't sort or organize the brain dump. Just let it all out there. It is the messy table holding all of the stuff in the cupboard. So it's a little bit anxiety inducing for some people, and I get that, but we have to see that that's our perfectionism coming out and our desire to control, and it's not helpful. So that's another thing, really, brain dumping. We have to override our perfectionist tendencies, and we have to override our desire to control and contain. And the brain dump lets us see that we aren't perfect. We can't control or contain this, and this is way more than I can actually handle. Those are the big things that you come to find, that we all come to find when we brain dump. And that's what makes the brain dump so powerful, is because it's just a tactic that really makes that obvious to us. Then we have to move on from that in light of that reality that we were hiding behind. We're using the clogged up mind with all the details to hide the fact that we can't control life, and we don't have it all together and all that. So part of brain dumping is admitting all that, and that's part of what makes it hard, but good for us. So that is how to brain dump. Then why do we brain dump? Well, I kind of used some of that material already. We do that not only so that we can think more clearly, come up with creative ideas and solutions to those problems, like we're holding on to the problem like a piece of information, instead of putting the information, the problem, onto paper. Then we can look at it and deal with it concretely. So it gives us the mental space and clarity to think about and deal with what we put onto paper, instead of just remembering that problem or issue or information. And then as we brain dump, we realize that it is our perfectionism and our desire to control and our bad attitudes, quite honestly, holding us back from moving forward. And that's a painful realization, but a needed first step. And the brain dump really helps clarify that and can become a catalyst for change in that area. Because once those things are on paper and you're looking at it, you're like, well, no wonder I feel crazy. No one person can do all those things. This was insane for me to try to think that I could do all those things. Once I see them on paper written out, like, what was I thinking? And that's huge. And that's a needed first step. So, although decluttering your mind is a similar process to decluttering your closet. Your mind makes a bad closet. So that's why most of that information that you're dumping out does not get put back in your mind. Like, we were treating our minds like closets. So we have to declutter them, we have to get it out. And then we look at it all and we're like, oh, none of this actually belongs in my brain space. So you don't put it back there. And sometimes you will find you keep brain dumping the same thing over and over and over. That's totally normal. That's totally okay. It's like there's a magnet or something where all of this stuff gets drawn back in. You just empty it out again. You just keep doing it. And as you're doing it, you're telling yourself the truth. When you see it on paper, then you make sure to tell yourself the truth about that thing. Like, that's not anything I need to worry about right now. Or you pray about it. You know, you actually do something with it. That you use your mind in the appropriate way with it, which is praying, thinking, problem solving, finding a friend to talk about it with, or just telling yourself, we're going to think about something else right now and moving on. So we can't hold on to the details and track the information in our lives in our brains, because our brains don't work that way. You cannot set a reminder in your brain like, oh, remind me to put out the trash Thursday night. Sometimes you'll remember and sometimes you won't, because that's not the way that brain connections and reminders work. They're a little bit more free spirit than that, and they're designed to work that way. So when we try to make it something it's not, things fall apart and we feel anxious because our expectation for how this is supposed to work is off base. So we need to use our minds for making connections, but we need to allow that to be analyzing, creatively problem solving. And that only happens when there's space mentally, which is why we need a brain dump. And then habit works both for and against us, even in our own brains, even in our thought patterns. We will find, and that comes back to writing down the same things over and over in your brain dump. You'll find that out. It's because we will find that we have set up habit loops, habit patterns, even in thinking, in trying to demand our brains to give us reminders at the right time, or just in doing the same thing, even if it's not working over and over. They quickly become bad habits. And so we keep doing it. But if we say, well, I'm going to write that down and then I'm going to think about it. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to repent. I'm going to move on. I'm going to change my thoughts. You can start establishing different patterns, but the new good habits, or different habits, only start after you recognize, identify the bad habits that you're trying to replace. And I think that the brain dump, another reason to do a brain dump, is because it helps us identify those repeating loops that we don't even realize are one of the things clogging up our minds. But we begin to notice that when we start paying a little bit more attention and when we start writing things down. So when do you get clear? So is a brain dump a once and done kind of thing? The answer is no. Just like any kind of organizing or decluttering, just FYI, is not something that you finish, no matter what anyone else maybe has told you about that. We brain dump all the time. It is not a once and done thing. And there are a few different kinds of brain dumping. And they are all good strategies, and we can use them when we need them, anytime, every time. And there's a fun way that I like to think about this. Again, this is David Allen. This is his term, and I love it. It's fun to say. So I'm going to use it. I'm going to say it several times since I have the opportunity and the microphone to say ubiquitous capture. Ubiquitous means always with you, everywhere, all the time. And so David Allen uses the term ubiquitous capture as one of the tools you need to be productive and organized. And that means you need something with you at all times to capture your ideas. So we're capturing the thoughts that are just popping into our head. We're actually doing something with them so they don't become clutter. We're putting them, we're writing them down, we're getting them out of our head so our head has the space to think. And that capture tool is with us all the time, ubiquitous. So basically, it means ubiquitous brain dump. It means always brain dumping. And the way I like to say it is with the motto, write it down right away. And at first, David Allen's, the first edition of the book came out before smartphones. I mean, it had been out for years before I read it, and hardly anyone had cell phones. Just the flip, that only made phone calls. Almost no one even texted. So this was kind of oh man, how do you have something with you all the time and something to write with? And so old school, you'll see people with a little tiny moleskins in their shirt pockets or back pocket. Girls don't have pockets. So it makes it ubiquitous capture more difficult. But or index cards with a binder clip is an old school PDA, personal. What I don't even remember what PDA stands for. I had one for a short time though. So now we have our phones, and just everyone always has their phone with them. So it's a no-brainer. Write it down right away on your phone. Pick one app though, and so you have one place to put it. So that's usually the easiest one's going to be whatever is the default, or you leave yourself, you send yourself a text, you can send yourself a voice memo, whatever is easiest. You just figure out what's the easiest, most convenient way to get yourself a message on your phone, and just do it. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes, the faster you get at it. Put it as a shortcut on your lock screen, or whatever it takes. We can find ways to shortcut the process now, and we need to take advantage of that. But we need to brain dump as soon as something pops into our head that we start getting, but we don't want to lose, but we also don't want to neurotically think about it all the time, worried that we're going to forget. So you write it down whenever it pops into your head. That's ubiquitous capture. You also brain dump. Even doing that, we all still have those times where we're I'm just feeling crazy right now. I don't even know what's bothering me. I just have a lot going on, and I couldn't tell you what any of it is. I just feel like there's a lot. I don't even know what it is. And so then you write it down. And what I find, you just brain dump as if you've never brain dumped before. And what I find when this happens to me is it's the exact same over and over. And, instead of being frustrated by that, we should just look at that and say, oh, this is just me being crazy again. This is just the same. This is just my duties. This is just my responsibilities. This is just normal life. And I was getting a little bit, I don't know, caught up in it again. Maybe it was hormones, whatever. I was just feeling out of it. But it's just I can deal with this. I can handle this. Then you pray and you dig in. So again, brain dumping the same thing over and over again, totally normal, totally okay. And we can actually look at that and find reassurance in that instead of frustration. It's really just a perspective thing. It's an attitude thing, which we'll get to at the end. So also brain dump at the start of any project. So if you're putting on a big party, if it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, family vacation, beginning of the school year, anything where you're pulling something together, you start with a brain dump. You don't start by doing just whatever is easiest first. You sit down and you brain dump about the whole thing. Excuse me. So before you begin any project, the first step really should be a brain dump. And then just always baby step it. Never try to think like, I'm just going to do this and do it once and for all and move on. Brain dump's never going to be finished. It's never going to be complete. You'll fill up a notebook and move on to another one. And it's not something that you finish. It's just a strategy to return to again and again whenever you need it. So just like we have to wash the dishes after every meal. It's not because we did anything wrong. We didn't wash them well enough the first time. It's because we ate another meal. And washing dishes is what you do after you eat a meal. So after living a certain amount of life, doing a certain amount of projects, you just have to brain dump again. Same deal. So then the inevitable question comes up. Now I have a notebook full of words, maybe even pictures, lines, whatever. What do I do with all of this? Can I get an amen? It's true. What do you do with all of it? And the reality is that you don't always, sometimes you don't do anything with it. The primary benefit that you get out of brain dumping is just that recognition of what's going on in your head, of having it written out, an objective where you can look at it. And being organized does not mean you keep everything and sort and file things meticulously. Like the people who make office supplies and label makers would love you to think that that's what organized means, because you would need to have hundreds of filing cabinets and all that if you're going to keep everything and file it meticulously. For the most part, what you brain dump stays in the brain dump, and that's totally okay. And, you know, you can even keep old brain dumps if, you know, you need to. Sometimes I do. They don't take up, you know, those cheap spiral notebooks don't take up that much space. I'll tear out pages and just throw them away sometimes. But a lot of it, a majority of it just stays in the brain dump, because the point was the process, not the product. The point was the process, not the product. So as you brain dump, you will find some things that you will need to put away, not back in your head, but actually where they belong. Like if you start writing things down, you're like, well, there's that orthodontist appointment that I never wrote down, so it keeps like popping into my brain when I'm in the shower and when I'm driving and all these places that I can't do anything about it. And so it's kind of stressing me out. You write it down, you're like, guess what? I'm going to go put that on my calendar right now. And then you put it on your calendar, you cross it off. Done. So you do need some of those places where you're going to put things away. But a majority of the things in your brain dump are just there as part of an exercise of clarity, of thinking, and it doesn't need to go beyond that. Some of those places, like a calendar, to-do list, usually, you know, it's okay if you have several different kinds of, or several different to-do lists. That's actually my recommendation too. And so, you know, it's already been 45 minutes here, and I have a lot more I could say about brain dumps, but I've already said it already. In fact, I've already written it out and done other things. So if you want to continue or start your brain dump, or maybe you have a brain dump and you want to know, where do I put these things? I do have a brand new free course called Declutter Your Mind, and I'm going to put the link here. You can enroll for free, and it has 4 modules. You'll learn. So the modules are write it down, which is what we spent most of the time talking about. And that's where most of the time for your brain dumping will go into writing it down, sort it out. So the 3 different actions you can take with those things that are on the paper, put it away. And I list out the kind of places that you need to have for the things that do need to be put away. Again, most of it will just stay in the brain dump notebook, but some things will need to be put away. What kind of places would it be put away to? A calendar, a to-do list. There are a few more, they're in the course. And then keep it up and making it a habit, continuing to come back to it, not a once and done thing, building the habit of ubiquitous capture. So you can find that in the free course, Declutter Your Mind. And that is in our new member area dashboard, which I'm super excited about. And I'm excited for you to check that out and just see how the courses work now, because we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes for the last few months, moving things over to a new platform that just really works better for everybody and looks a lot better. And so this free course is a way to experience that. And in the Declutter Your Mind course, it's the same as anything else in Simply Convivial continuing education. That's what we're calling membership right now. So you subscribe and you get everything there. I'm not selling courses individually. It's just everything, including community support like this in the chat box, where everyone's just there for you and willing and ready to share ideas and to help you overcome your obstacles, to talk things out, people who get it. I think that support piece and accountability piece is just so vital. So it's all the courses and that ongoing support and community, and including, that's membership, which we call continuing education, because we all need to always be improving, growing our skills and our knowledge, no matter where you're starting out at. If homemaking is our calling, and it is, then it's something that we can pursue with joy and, with interest, and really apply ourselves to it. So that's what we're about. And the Declutter Your Mind course, the free course that you can sign up for by clicking that green button, has the same foundational idea underneath it that all of the courses do. And that is, you have to organize your attitude so you can organize your life. And when you brain dump, one of the things you're going to see is what's going on in your mind. It's the stories you're telling yourself, the way you're interpreting your life. All of that's going to come out. It's not just going to be appointments and ideas and vacations. I'm going to guess that a majority of what comes out of your brain when you brain dump is bad attitude. Maybe good attitude, but we all have so much bad attitude going on about our homes and people and ourselves. And it's a little bit shocking when it starts coming out. But we need that shock, and we need to see that that's what's going on by default. And that just lets us know we have to do something intentional about that. And so the brain dump is not apart from organizing our attitude. It's actually the first piece, really, of organizing our attitude, which means to organize your attitude is to put your attitude where it belongs, to have the attitude that you ought to have, to get rid of junky attitudes and replace them with truth, to orient yourself and therefore your actions to truth. And that's really the first step. If you want to organize your life, and we all are drawn to the products or the tips and the tricks for organizing our life, when really it comes down to our attitudes so much of the time, and everything else just flows out from that. You can't Band-Aid over with a label maker when the real problem in our homes is our own bad attitudes. So we always focus on our attitudes in Simply Convivial. So I like to say we have the ABCs of homemaking, that everything centers on in continuing education, including this free course. We have to adjust our attitudes because all of life is an overflow from the heart. We need to build better habits because it's usually one of those bad attitudes is perfectionism, wrong expectations. And when we just become satisfied and content in taking baby steps, we start seeing significant progress, whereas perfectionism turns into procrastination and all kinds of issues, control issues. So just small steps, building better habits, and then celebrate the small wins. And that really happens in the community. We have accountability groups. We have the share your small wins. We have hundreds of ladies who get it and are cheering one another on, that just know that what looks or sounds insignificant in the world really does matter and really does make a difference in our homes. And we're there to acknowledge that to one another, to make sure that we all see the progress that really is happening and acknowledge it. Because when we acknowledge it and celebrate it, we can take the next step and get some real traction and momentum going. So the vocational training that we offer at Simply Convivial starts with brain dumps and addresses housework, personal habits, homemaking, organizing your attitude, planning, meal planning. There's a course for all of that, but all of it centers on the attitude. And really all of it starts with brain dumping. There's brain dumping in almost all of the courses. So even if you're in membership, or even if you've done some of the courses before, I still recommend going to this free course on the dashboard, Declutter Your Mind, because especially if you've had any trouble with brain dumping, because it's really just all laid out there right now. It's very sequential, it's very clear. And so if some of the brain dumping in the other courses you weren't sure you were doing it right or whatever, you just really want to figure out the brain dumping piece, the free course, it's a good course. So yes, so that's a free course. Anyone, if you click this green link, you will go to the registration page, which it's just an email address, name and email address, and then you'll get a login. You'll be told how to log in. You'll see everything. You'll be on the main member dashboard, but everything will be grayed out if you aren't a member. But you'll see the Declutter Your Mind course, and you can take it. It has 4 modules, and it's very straightforward. And I'm really excited to hear your feedback from it. So let me see here. I have a couple questions, so I will go ahead and answer the questions that I see here. Will the PowerPoint be available? So actually I'm going to take the recording and kind of trim the beginning and end off of it and put it into the course. So it'll be the intro video into the Declutter Your Mind course. And the information that's in the slide deck is all in the course. So the slide deck's not available particularly, except in the replay. You'll see it in the replay. But all the information that's written here is in the course. So, and it's step by step like the slide deck is. So I think that the free course is better than the slide deck. When do you go back to the brain dump lists, though? So that's part of processing. In the course, there's a module called Sort It Out and Put It Away. And those really cover that. And yes, as Kathy said, the weekly review is really key there, and where we go back over our notes. But that's a whole nother workshop right there, the weekly review. And I have lots of blog posts on the weekly review. But really the point of the brain dump is just writing it all out, and it's not processing the whole thing. But again, that is definitely answered in the free course if you want to work through that. So My natives are getting restless here as well, Kathy. So I have, can I please trace the letters? I have a little messages being written for me. So, yeah, check out the free course and I will see you around. I'll have a follow-up email with that link again too, so you don't miss it. So thank you everyone for showing up and for making this a fun live event, and I will see you around.